All right, we're here in my tiny DIY worm bin, and the last time we were in here, we set up a feeding zone on one side, and I believe it was this side right here. So we're gonna go ahead and dig in that side, and we also decided not to put any more bedding in. And we had in here a mango that had a bunch of worms in it, but it also had some mites, and we want to check on that burlap sack. We had put tomatoes in it a couple feedings ago, and there was still a little bit in there because we got in here at about 4 days after we fed just to check on the oats that I think were on this side versus the food scraps. And the oats were completely gone, but it did feel a little dry and chalky right there. And as I'm digging in here, this is feeling like a lot of castings in, pretty clumpy. In fact, I'm gonna squeeze it and you see how it clumps together, but then it crumbles apart too. And this bin is really turning towards getting closer and closer to castings. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think we're probably maybe a couple months away. So hopefully I'm in the feeding zone. I didn't get the bin turned around. I really should label it on the side or something so I know, but we are right away running into some really thick red wigglers. Let me see if I can put a bunch on my hand here and show you, but they just look bigger to me. I don't know if because I'm trying to make them look bigger because we just fed pulverized oats and I heard that makes them bigger, but that and they are pretty feisty. So look at that right there. They are wiggling around like crazy. So let's go ahead and keep digging in. And here is our burlap sack. So we might as well take a look at it while we're here. And right here, I don't know, that could be a little bit of a cocoon on the side of this worm or not, I'm not sure, but we'll just let it go. And let's go ahead and look inside this burlap sack. Now, there was a little bit of the tomato skin in here. I don't know how much bulk was in there, but we'll go ahead and take a peek. And it's starting to look like it's deteriorating a little bit. Let's go ahead and look inside here. All right, so let me take a peek in there, and there's still some tomato leaves in there or skin, but I'm gonna turn it inside out. I haven't done this before, but let's just kind of turn this little guy inside out and see what we've got here. We've got some worms making their way throughout it, and I see some mites on the corners, and a lot of stringiness, probably from some stuff that we've put in there before, but they might be starting to break this down, because it doesn't feel quite as sturdy as it did before. In fact, I'm gonna try to pull it. Yeah, it's pretty sturdy. Oh, wishful thinking. But let's go ahead and turn it right side in, and we'll go ahead and fill it with some of the stuff that we're gonna feed it later on. So I'm just gonna set this to the side. All right, let's dig in. Well, before we do that, let's take a look at this avocado. It's always interesting to me to see how the worms pile in here and then add castings. We really didn't fill this in, but I am seeing a lot of mites, so the mites are enjoying the avocado. And it looks like maybe a little bit of potworms in there too. So little ecosystem going in here, and I don't see too many worms. I see a little one right there. And let's look over on this side. It's definitely getting a lot of the avocado parts off it, and now what's left is kind of the shell. And sure enough, underneath I'm seeing a bunch of worms right there. There we go. There's the worms. So a little mixture of mites and worms, no big deal. They're both helping to get this bin moving towards castings. So I'll put this over here too. And I think what we're gonna do is stay over here and keep putting food scraps over here, because I don't really see necessarily a migration of worms. I don't see like, okay, here's where all the worms are. I won't be able to tell until I go into that other side, but let's go ahead and keep digging. And it definitely feels wetter down here, not soaking wet, no standing water or anything, but the castings themselves just kind of feel wetter. So we are getting a lot of them over here. We certainly are getting a lot of them over here. So, and we started with 500, actually 492 when we started this bin. So that was 107 days ago. So I'm expecting to have, you know, somewhere between 600 to 700 if everything goes according to plan. And here's that tea bag that we put in here the last time. They're definitely starting to break down this part. And I'm not sure about the tea bag, but I've put these in the past and they have deteriorated and got worked into castings. So no problems there. I think we did put the feeding down pretty low. So as I'm digging way down here, I'm starting to see Some more worms. Yep, they're definitely on this side. Here's the other reason why we're gonna try to start finishing this off. I am all the way to the top inside this bin. And I think the last time we ran this bin, it was about 4.5 pounds when we harvested. I just weighed this and it's 10 pounds right now. So I have way more castings, way more bedding, way more food, way more worms than when I ran this, you know, starting I think last May, and right now it's February. So let's go ahead and put all this stuff back over here, kind of aerating it so it doesn't get compacted. Make sure they get some oxygen everywhere. All right, let's go ahead and push this over just so we can sneak a peek over to this other side. And we're gonna continue to put the food over on this side. And maybe we'll see a difference. Maybe there'll be a difference in the castings and the bedding over here. We'll see if they're just as thick in kind of clay-like. All right, well, we're running into lots of worms again. Maybe I didn't get in here quick enough. It's been 7 days and I didn't see any food scraps. So maybe they went over there, migrated over there, and then came right back to work on stuff over here. But I would say either A, I did not get in here quick enough to see a migration, or B, there's just so much food spread all throughout that the worms don't even care. All right, I'll just go through the middle, just real quick, and then we'll set up the feeding zone. All right, so I've got a lot more food scraps than this tiny worm bin can handle. And I've got 2 other bins, so there's other places for me to put my food scraps. In fact, if you wanna check those out, I've got a couple playlists for them. Subscribe to my channel if you like looking at my different experiments, and hit the bell icon to get notified. But that's right, we're not gonna put any bedding in here, so I can actually put some of this down and start the food right on what we've got here. And this time I'm actually gonna remember the burlap sack and some of that stuff that was on top. And here's what we had in mind for a feeding. Now this looks like a bunch. This is a lot of my garden greens. We've got arugula and chard and baby bok choy, that kind of thing. Some strawberries maybe, and a lettuce stalk that I don't think is from the garden. But it's all mostly water and it'll just shrink on down and the worms will get to it super quick. But let me lay down some of these oats, which we're gonna have in here what seems like forever because I had a whole thing of oats expire on me. And some folks said to maybe sprinkle some water on the oats, and I think this is probably the next best thing, is putting all these leafy water-filled greens on it. And we'll put this thing looks huge, but it's gonna shrink right down. And I saw that early on in one of my very first experiments. Put a lettuce stalk in there. I thought it would be done. I thought it would take a couple weeks, and sure enough, it was gone in about 4 days. I'm also putting in just greens because I found that the mites kind of like the fruits better, and actually they really like that avocado. So I think if I keep it to greens, maybe the population will die down. But again, I'm not too worried about mites. You can try and get them out of your bins by baiting it, that kind of thing. But in general, mites will go away on their own. So here's some coffee, and it's just a food source that I like to add. It's really granulated, it's spent coffee, and the worms can get to it pretty quickly. And then of course we'll add some grit, which for me is pulverized eggshells. And they use this in their digestion. They have a gizzard that helps them grind up their food. And it looks like I forgot to put food in here. So I'm just gonna take from here. They're gonna get some baby bok choy in here, in this burlap sack. And funny, this burlap sack actually was the packaging for one of my bracelets that I got. And I thought it was pretty cool. I've never had burlap, so I decided to throw it in the worm bin. And I've had some people say they use burlap as a top covering. And other people say that they put burlap within their bins and the worms eat it pretty quickly. So I don't know if this is true burlap or if it's just kind of a gimmicky thing, but we're gonna continue to try and get it to degrade in here. So I'll put it over on this side. And then we'll go ahead and bury this feeding. Again, here's the avocado pieces, and we'll kind of treat this as migration if they decide to migrate over here. And maybe what I need to do is come in at day 5 instead of day 7, and then I might be able to catch them over here. And certainly, I mean, there's so much food throughout. Bedding is food, so they may not be as enticed as a typical migration bin with the amount of food over here, just because there's food everywhere. But I think this will do it for another go at the migration on this side. So I hope everybody's having a great day, and happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.